It doesn't break apart. It's still glucose. And these are just gee whiz slides. There's nothing on here that's testable. So again, don't worry about it. It's just showing you that you have a lot more sodium outside the cell than inside, and a lot more potassium inside than outside. And we all know that is why. Quickly, somebody. Yeah, our sodium potassium pump. And again, the rest you can figure out. We always have more chloride outside the cell because it's chasing sodium. And again, calcium, very low concentrations, but calcium is going to vary of where it's higher concentrated. But again, I'm not going to ask you anything about calcium, magnesium, or any of these other things. So just ignore that slide completely. Again, you had this on your first test, so that's not new. So again, we want to stay isotonic, and so I want my blood sodium level to be at what percent? Something you should never forget. Okay, you're off significantly, Resh. There we go, 0.9. All right, big difference between 9% and 0.9. But yeah, that's normal saline. When you hear somebody in the hospital say normal saline in the IV, it's 0.9% sodium. Sodium chloride, I should say. So again, none of this on here is new to you. All right. So again, we're just going to fly through this. And I probably mentioned this before. There's a misconception that's been propagated for decades. You were told that how many glasses of water should you drink a day? Yeah, you all heard that. And that's kind of one of those great misinterpretations. What the science says. And of course, we're talking about your normal day-to-day, not if you're out running a marathon or whatever, but normal day-to-day activities, you need the equivalent of 8 glasses of water a day. The equivalent. But that doesn't mean you need to drink 8 glasses of water a day. 5 is plenty because you're going to get quite a bit of water out of your foods. Unless you're just eating raisins and beef jerky, you get about 30%, and then you make water through your metabolism. That classic C6H12O6 plus 6O2 gives me 6 CO2 and 6 H2O and ATP. So you make quite a bit. So that's the only thing on this slide that I want to emphasize to you. All right, you don't need 8 glasses of water. 5 in any way, form, or fashion. Again, the equivalent of 5. So I consider my diet Mountain Dew a glass of water. All right. And again, these numbers over here are going to vary based on what we learned about the kidneys. So if you drink way more water than average, then you're going to make way more urine as well. And then the rest of these vary depending on lots of things, how much you're sweating. Oh my God. I have a nephew and niece in town, and they wanted to go see 6th Street this afternoon before this class. I was like, it's 100 degrees, but we went anyway. It was miserable. It was miserable. But they wanted to see what 6th Street looked like. I don't know why at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Anyway, so again, the only thing important test-wise is knowing what you need to drink. Yeah, exactly, Christine, on a Monday. Well, they're leaving tomorrow. And so I was like, well, I have to teach from 5:30 to 7:30. Maybe afterwards we'll see Sixth Street, at least in the evening, but yet on a Monday, no choice. But yeah, kind of silly, I know. Boom. So again, the only thing to take away, a lot of this just for your information. Your hypothalamus, that's part of those drives. Thirst is drive, and so your hypothalamus is going to tell you that, hey, you're thirsty. The problem with this is by the time your hypothalamus says to you, you're thirsty, go get a glass of water or something to drink, you're pretty dehydrated. So you don't really ever want to wait till you actually feel thirsty, right? And again, there's nothing here that I care that you know, all right? You've already seen these hormones. You know how they work, so I shouldn't have to mention them at all. And of course, electrolyte and ion mean the same thing. And you know that we need sodium and potassium and calcium for neuromuscular activity, action potentials. You know calcium is used as a second messenger in secretory activity, as well as muscle contractions and all that kind of good stuff. So nothing new on that slide. Remember that this is probably something that'll be on the test with the kidneys. So there's my normal osmolarity that the kidneys make sure happens. The only thing of interesting is, like, of that 300, 280 is sodium. And again, nothing new on this slide. You've seen all of this before, and this slide is pretty much worthless, so don't worry about that. And the atrial natriuretic peptide we already talked about. That's going to basically cancel out the vasopressin and the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone. So nothing new there. None of this is going to be on your test as far as all this stuff down here. That's just for you to go, ooh, interesting. So yeah, I'm not going to ask you anything on these two slides because it's a refresher. You will, on this test, have the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system and the ADH from the previous lectures. Potassium, again, when we have aldosterone, when you reabsorb the sodium, the kidneys are going to get rid of the potassium. It's that simple. Again, nothing on here on the bottom is necessary. And again, we all know this because we've had this in the very beginning. We know about hyperkalemia and hypokalemia and its effect on action potentials. We've already talked about calcium. We talked about this during the endocrine system. So again, there's nothing on this slide that's new. Nothing. Chloride, again, it's just going to go wherever sodium is going to go. So I regulate sodium, chloride will follow. So again, the only thing that's going to be a little new is some of this acid stuff. All right. So this is our pH scale, and not to scare anybody, but what we call this scale is a negative log units. So these numbers, this pH, actually represents the concentration of ions in a solution. You don't need to know this. None of this negative 1 times 10 to the negative 2 or 3, that's not important. It's just to show you where those numbers came from. So if you have a pH of 3, that means you have 1 times 10 to the negative 3 hydrogen ions per liter. You don't need to know that. So again, here's your pH scale. And so yes, your soda is at a pH of 3. Primarily because, as you have learned, to make a carbonated beverage, I put a lot of carbon dioxide in water, and of course, that's going to ultimately make carbonic acid. So if you ever decide to do interesting visit to a country where they say it's not wise to drink the water because they don't have quite the techniques of sterilizing water that we do, you're safe drinking a soda in any country. I don't care how remote, you're safe with that. Okay. This is a very important study slide. So mark it. So the primary source of hydrogen ions, which is what we're mostly concerned of, came through the CO2 plus H2O, gives me my carbonic acid, okay? And we've already talked all about that in respiration. Lactic acid is produced when I'm in an anaerobic situation where my oxygen demands are exceeded. So instead of being able to unload the hydrogens to the water, or the oxygen, I should say, we just add them to our pyruvate, and that becomes lactic acid. Again, don't worry about the chemistry, and you all have heard the term. The one that's relatively new, but that we did talk about to some degree, and that is ketone bodies, which is a very weird thing to call it. But again, your ketones come from when you use fat as your primary energy source. So if you take your lipids to make ATP, these are the byproducts: acetone, acetoacetic acid, and beta hydroxybutyric acid. And that goes into, I think somebody was so that's what they're talking about when they talk about ketoacidosis in the keto diet. If you're on a keto diet, well, that's not very smart, but whatever. You're using mostly fats and proteins instead of glucose, which your body would rather have. And so your body can get acidic, which is not good. It's not good, as you know. Anybody have any questions? Somebody was really chomping at the bit about the keto diet.
Oh, I just wanted to know because every time I try to have that conversation with my mom, she just tries to fight me about it.
Well, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. In fact, studies showed, and believe me, I did a lot of research on that, especially when it was super popular. And I want you to think about that, about this. They did show people that were on a keto diet lost weight. But when they took really close observation, you know why they lost weight? Okay. Joshua's kind of onto it, but I want everybody to think about this as just being a normal human being. If I said you could eat steak and eggs all day long, but that's all you can eat. That's all you can eat. What's going to happen to you after maybe 3, 4, 5 days or even a week of eating nothing but steak and eggs? Christine. No, a lot of these people lost weight. They didn't get fat. What was going on from a human standpoint? Come on. That's not what I'm looking for. Thank you, Vanessa. Now you're onto it. Now you're onto it. Come on, everybody would get, you'd think, oh man, steak and eggs, that sounds wonderful. But if that's all you got to eat, after a while, not only you get bored, you just lose your appetite. And so they were losing weight because they just weren't eating as much of it. because it gets old, you know. And that's just human nature. The worst job I ever had, and to this day, I actually, one of my very first jobs is I worked in a donut shop, and I made donuts all day long. And to this day, the smell of donuts just kind of makes me nauseous. It's like, ugh, I can't deal with it anymore. Sure. What about water fast? Some people do 72 hours of water fast. Yeah, well, again, why are we doing this water fast? I mean, yeah, you need water much more than you need food. But again, I'm not sure the rationale about that. And again, if you live long enough and you pass by the grocery magazine stand and you see all these magazines where it's Cosmo and Elle and Health, and they have a new diet every issue. Okay. So Rish, what have I told you about detoxification? No. Yes, the liver does that and the kidneys do it. So I do not believe in anything that involves a detoxification of your body. The only detoxification you would really need are those unique situations of mercury or lead poisoning or arsenic. Those are all heavy metals that bind to proteins, and they're really hard to get rid of. All right, but otherwise you don't need to be detoxed. All right, beautiful. All right, some people stop eating after a certain time. Does that work? Not really. The bottom line is it's calories in, calories out. So all you need to know, people that are trying to sell magazines or a product, that's who does. And it's effective. People are trying to make money. 90% of that stuff, and I hate to say this if you actually worked in one, 90% of the stuff in stores is just garbage. Yeah. So no, I adhere to the facts. So here, let me give you a simple nutrition lesson. All right. And then you can take this to the bank. So let's get the camera. Oh no, hold on. Come on, damn it. So this is not testable, but this is good for your life. And you can preach the story. Yeah, that's dumb too. You know how you lower your cholesterol? Stop eating cholesterol. All right. So here's a little lesson. I used to give this lecture to a lot of people. And so give me 1 second. Let me get the camera set up. I wasn't planning on using the camera tonight, but we don't need it. But what the hey? Oh, okay. Hold on. All right. Now we're ready. How do I feel about CMOS? I don't know anything about CMOS. That's funny. I have no idea if it's, I don't know. Let me explain something to you. And then, like I said, we'll talk about anything else you want. But that's just funny. Here we go. So this is just simple math. And you guys might know some of this. Or not. Okay. All right. So everybody can see my my screen, right? Okay. Okay. So here's your lessons for today. Excuse me. How many have heard of BMR? Anybody know what that stands for? Very good, Suresh. So that's basically the average number of calories you need to take in to maintain homeostasis. Just again, we're not talking about running a marathon or a 100-mile bike ride, just your daily activities. And this is based on your body size and weight. So for a male, that may be 2,000 calories that they need a day to just maintain where they are. A female, about 1,700. And again, this is going to vary depending on how big you are or how small you are. All right. So that's the first premise. That's how many calories you need to just do your normal activities. All right. Now, the next thing that I think every person should know is to read labels. So if you don't already know this, I'm glad I can enlighten you. I should put this over here. Your carbs have 4 calories per gram. Carbs, 4 calories per gram. Proteins have 4 calories per gram. Fats have 9 calories per gram. And if you didn't know this, alcohol has 7 calories. So yeah, drinking a lot of alcohol can add a lot of weight. And if you just read your packages on your food, just turn it over and look and see, you can see what the percentage of whatever product that is, how much of it is fat and how much of it is calories and whatnot. All right. So getting back to basic physics here is I need this for my daily activity. If I'm only consuming 1,500 calories, I'm on a diet. Because I have a net loss of 500 calories. So I needed 2,000. I only took 1,500 in, so I'm technically restricting my caloric intake. Diet, net difference, I can just use my triangle. You guys know what a triangle is. It's 500. Now, who can impress me? How many calories are in a pound of fat? Very good, Deani. She is right. So 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories. Okay. So at the very best, if you went on, and this is a pretty significant diet, all right? at the very best, how much weight are you going to lose a week? A pound. 500 times 7 gives you 3,500. That's it. So any diets that say you lose 5 pounds a week, you didn't lose 5 pounds of fat. 2 or 3 of those pounds are probably what? Water. Exactly. Water. Because remember what we said. A lot of your food has water in it. So if you reduce your food intake, you're reducing your water intake. Now, we could go a little extreme, but this would take incredible discipline. Is we could take this diet, 1,500, and then we can also exercise. And a good exercise regimen without absolutely killing yourself would be about 200 calories. Maybe 3, but that's going to be hard to do because you reduced your calories, so you don't have the ATP you need. All right. So now your net is 800 loss. So you could probably lose maybe 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds, but you're not going to be happy. You're going to be miserable. And to exercise every day for 300 calories, that's super extreme. Now, where I'm trying to go with this, and I'll wrap this up, is your body doesn't give a darn where those calories came from. All right? So you could go on a diet of, say, butter and bananas. You'll eat 3 sticks of butter and 6 bananas a day. Or mozzarella sticks. Very good, Vanessa. So you're going to go out on a diet and you're going to eat 1,500 calories of mozzarella fried cheese. Yeah, delish. But again, if you only ate 1,500 calories of mozzarella sticks and nothing else, you will lose weight. All right? You're going to lose weight. That's just physics. Okay? And there's no diet that can actually change your basal metabolic rate, change how your body converts your nutrients, your foodstuffs into calories. All right? That can't be done. So the keto diet does not in any way, form, or fashion change your BMR in any way. Christine, okay, you're 4'10", 90 pounds. Oh my gosh, you are small. I can do, yeah. Well, let me talk about that, Vanessa. So, yeah, really, you only need probably 1,200 calories. I have a little calculator that would do that. I can give you a more accurate answer. Okay, I can give you a little bit more accurate answer with one of my little apps, my little programs. So, okay, we got a tiny class today. To address, I know, we got a lot of munchkins. And again, the reason why you want to diet reasonably and exercise, okay, so this is, well, 300 is not really reasonable. 200 is reasonable. Again, that'd be extreme. But you want to exercise because if you cut your caloric intake down significantly, and you're not getting all those carbs, those glucose, then, and I'm sure I mentioned this before, your body is going to say, hey, wait, I can make glucose from amino acids, my proteins, gluconeogenesis, and I can actually make ATP directly from amino acids. It's not very efficient. So what's your body going to do? If you're not using your muscle, your body's going to say, well, they're not using those muscles, so I'm just going to break down the muscle and use it for energy. So the worst diet in the world is what some of those models do, the yo-yo diets, where there are extreme caloric restriction, but they're not exercising. So yeah, they're going to be very soft. They may look good until you actually stick your finger on their arm. Yeah, extreme bodybuilding is unhealthy too. All right. Just a nice exercise routine, a little bit of weightlifting, a little bit of aerobics. But again, so folks, I do not believe in any diets. The only diet is reduce your caloric intake, and I don't care where the calories came from. Get some exercise so you're not breaking down your own muscle. And really, a really good diet program is at the very most 1 to 2 pounds a week. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Okay, so this is everything you need to know about. Some of you obviously don't need to lose weight. You probably need to gain weight. But the bottom line is, you need to be able to understand where the calories are coming from. Realize that, and realize, I could go on forever, but realize what they do to you. So, because most people don't. So you buy a bag of potato chips, and on the back, and I have a lot of numbers memorized, it says 160 calories per serving. If you don't look closely, you will find out that 90 of those 160 calories came from fat. And the worst thing is, what's a serving of potato chips? You guys are way off. 22 hot Cheetos. I don't know if you guys are making these numbers up or not. My bag says 20 chips. Okay. Yes, Daniel. Most people eat at least half the bag. Yeah. About 15 chips is what I was going to say. All right. And that's really not a lot of chips, folks. And they do that on purpose, because people don't look at the serving size. Like, you say 160 calories per serving, that's not bad. And then you realize that it was only 15 chips. And so a lot of foods do that. So being very diligent on how many calories per serving and understanding what they are claiming the serving is how you do it. That's the only diet you need. And like I said, whatever you want to eat is fine. Just make sure you're counting calories and it doesn't go above 1,500. All right. That's all I have to say about that. I hope some of that was entertaining. All right. Let's press on here. Well, thank you, Christine. Well, most of my knowledge comes from the several biochemistry courses I took in graduate school that was all about metabolism. I took 3 advanced biochemistry classes that had everything to do about the body's metabolism and how you make AT and those calories. And I guarantee you, most nutrition instructors, even the ones that work for me, don't have that background. They don't have that background. So just one of those things I was fascinated with. All right. Let's move on, finish this up. We're almost done. There's just a couple things here that we need to finish up on. So almost everything I just said that I wrote down, just for your edification and understanding how the diets work. And you never want to go extreme where you're miserable all the time, because then you will quit. That's human nature. Everybody will quit. All right. So you want to do something where you lose a pound or 2 a week, a week, And the other thing that's always good to do is record it. Put it on your calendar. Like, okay, week 1, week 2, week 3, and then record your weight so you can see your progress. All right, so let's get back and finish this up. So the ketone bodies is normally not something you want to happen because, again, you are going to have what we call acidosis, ketoacidosis, and usually you get that from people that are starving. I mean, literally famine, or they have diabetes. If you have diabetes, you can't use glucose, so you're using more fats. And one of the classic signs of somebody that has diabetes, somebody knows this, probably Suresh, is their breath, right? Does everybody know about that? Yeah, I figured Suresh would know that. Yeah. Yeah, they have a fruity breath. And, you know, it's kind of a strange interpretation, but that fruity breath is actually the acetone. And yes, that's the same acetone in your nail polish remover, but certainly not to that strength. Okay. So this is a very important slide. It'll be on your test. I'm telling you that right now. So you're making these hydrogen ions and you got to buffer them. We can't not let our pH get out of whack. We already know everything about the respiratory center and hyper and hypoventilation. We already know the basics of the kidneys. We don't know a whole lot about the buffers, but we're going to keep this really simple. I do expect you to know these definitions. Those will be on the test. So a strong acid is an acid that completely dissociates, meaning every molecule will split into a hydrogen ion and an anion. So hydrochloric acid is a strong acid, meaning HCl, when you put it in water, every molecule of HCl is going to separate into hydrogen and chloride. Weak acids, which is the ones we have in our diet, dissociate less than 5%. So something like vinegar, which is acetic acid, is just acetic acid, and only 5 out of 100 molecules of acetic acid are going to dissociate. Right? Citric acid is the same way. Carbonic acid is the same way. So those are the two things I want you to understand. Other strong acids is sulfuric acid, which I'm sure a lot have heard of, sulfuric acid in some form or another, or nitric acid. So we have 3 basic buffer systems. And again, this is really important right here, this definition. That'll be one of your questions. Again, don't confuse buffer with neutralize. If I neutralize something, I change the pH to what? Seven. Yeah, and is that good to have my blood pH down at 7? No, that's too low. That's bad. Okay, so don't confuse it. So a buffer system's job is to resist a change. We want to keep the pH right where it is, right where it is. All right. So what we do, and this is the simplest way I can explain what a buffer system does. A buffer system is 1 or 2 molecules that either grabs a hydrogen ion and holds on to it until the kidneys can get rid of it. If my pH is too high, I'm alkaline, I want a molecule to unload a hydrogen ion, put it back in the system. So it's just either taking it out of the system or putting that hydrogen ion back into the system. So one of your test questions is going to be this down here. So this is your bicarbonate buffer system. This is what's going on in your body. All right. So once again, if I have too many hydrogen ions out here, I have this sodium bicarbonate that can unload the sodium and pick up the hydrogen. And I can go back and forth with this. And it's reversible. because sometimes I'm a little too acidic, sometimes a little too alkaline. So this is the system that you use in your blood, and this is the one I want you to know. All right. The other one is what's used in the cell, and it's the phosphate buffer system, and it's pretty much the exact same thing. Instead of bicarbonate, it's phosphate. But again, I'm not going to ask you about this one. All right. And the other one is proteins. We mentioned this a little bit when we were talking about carbonic acid and bicarbonate in the transportation of the CO2 out of your system. So proteins are very good buffers, because here's my standard protein. I have my amine group on one side for amino, and then my acid carboxylic group on the other side. So depending on whether hydrogen ions are low or high, I can either pick up a hydrogen or I can unload a hydrogen. And that's all you need to know. So again, we've already seen this slide as well. So I'd like to think by now you know that when your pH is low, you're acidic, your breathing rate is going to slow down. When your pH is high, your excuse me. Did I just get that backwards? When your pH is low, you're acidic, you're going to slow down your breathing speed up your breathing because we want to get rid of that CO2. We want to get rid of the CO2 if my pH is too low. And it's just vice versa for the alkalosis. All right. If my pH is too high, I want to hold the CO2 and make more carbonic acid. You already know that. I think I kind of confused you in the beginning because I slipped there. So boom, boom, boom. And we already know this right here. Remember, our normal concentration is 40. And so if it's 45, higher CO2, I have an acidosis problem. If it's below 40, I have an alkalosis problem. And so this is just saying what we just talked about here. All right. We basically mentioned that the kidneys are the ones that can actually get rid of hydrogen ions, i.e. you excrete them in the urine. All right. So we do this by, again, manipulating that reaction of H2O plus CO2 gives me H2CO3. All right. And again, we have these cuboidal cells that are very unique. And again, they can either keep the hydrogen ions if you're too alkaline, or get rid of the hydrogen ions if you're too basic. And we're going to keep it that simple. So don't let these illustrations mess with you too much. Really, the only thing you need to understand is your kidneys are going to, the number one person that's going to make sure your pH is right where it needs to be. All right. So we have the metabolic acidosis and alkalosis. And again, we already talked about the metabolism part, the lactic acid, ketosis, and diabetes, starvation. So all the things we just talked about a little bit earlier. All right. We have some self-induced issues like too much alcohol. Metabolic alkalosis is so rare. All right. If you're vomiting quite a bit and you're getting rid of that hydrochloric acid, you're strung out on Tums or Rolaids. That's not good. And then occasional constipation. This one is not important. I want you guys to just focus on the response to acidosis. So here's your test question. if you were acidic, you're going to increase your breathing rate. Get rid of the CO2. You're going to use your buffer system to pick up the hydrogen ions. Your kidneys are going to secrete the hydrogen ions, keep the bicarbonate so it can pick up more hydrogen ions. So they all work together. This is all working at the same time. And this is your study slide. And that's all you need to know. The alkalosis is just the exact opposite. But I want you to focus on this. Okay, any questions? Quiet. Any questions? Anyone? Anyone? Why is it so quiet? All right. Well, Tolani, what is the schedule hasn't changed. It's whatever your schedule says. I think that's August 8th. Yeah, 8th. Yeah. Monday, next Monday, a week from today. Okay. All righty then. No more questions? Take that in and did I agree to that? I don't remember. I don't know how. Well, if you want to take it early, okay. What do I get the feeling that most people are going to wait to the last minute to take it? Anyway. All righty. Okay, so yeah, I'll keep it open Friday or Saturday to Monday. That's fine. Okay, we're done with this lecture so that we have just the reproductive system. Pretty straightforward. It just gets a little confusing with the hormones. So let's everybody just take a